Bonjour.
You either listen to someone who knows what they're talking about and adopt the changes that they're suggesting, or alternatively you don't and you bury your head in the sand. And fortunately I decided to do the first, and that was probably the defining moment and why craft still exists.
Hello everyone and welcome back.
I was going to do the intro then.
You should do it, man.
Shall I try?
Yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Breaking Bread podcast. It actually said Breaking Bread. That's the first. I'm getting there.
I like the smooth tones there.
Well, now when I talk about the TV show Breaking Bad, I call it Breaking Bread. I was on about it, the best TV shows ever the other day, and I said, I love Breaking Bread.
Everyone's like, yeah.
So it's whichever way around. But either way, I'm Carl and I do this lovely podcast. My best buddy.
I'm Liam. We're just two normal people obsessed with food. We like to talk about it and share the stories of some of the amazing people in Birmingham.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so if you want to help us spread the word about how brilliant Birmingham is, obviously give us a little like and review on iTunes.
Yeah, we don't get anything for it, but it's nice to have it, and it's nice to get the podcast out there and people listening.
Yeah, or Spotify. If you do that, it does get it in front of more ears. Nearly said ice. Gets it in front of more ears.
Yeah.
So it really helps us out. If you could consider doing that, that'd be amazing, and we'll love you forever. Today's episode was with, I suppose we can call them friends now, like friends of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
We've had Andrew Sheridan on before from obviously Eight and Craft, and today we wanted to do something a little different. We've had chef owners on and a few business owners, but we've never had like just a pure restaurant owner. He's not a chef, that's his own admission.
No.
He's not front of house, he's a businessman, he's an owner, and he's got a great passion for it. I think it really shines through, doesn't it?
It's a really good story how he sort of came to be where he is today, and
Yeah.
it's nice listening a different point of view from someone that's just about the fire. I mean, you'll see him in the restaurant and he does help out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've been in there and I've seen him behind the bar serving and stuff. Like, he gets his hands dirty, he gets involved, and it was really nice to have a completely different story to listen to.
So we're talking about Sam Morgan, obviously co-owner, or his wife will kill him, from Craft.
Yeah.
Really nice dude. Craft kind of popped up out of nowhere, didn't it? All of a sudden, like, was it 2019? He said 2019. It just popped up at the bottom of Symphony Hall.
Yeah, there was just this massive restaurant out of nowhere
Yeah.
that looked great.
Wow.
Well, it looked great. Like, they've done a lot of work to it since.
Oh, it looks amazing now. But at the time, I happened to agree with Andrew Sheridan's assessment. It looked like a massive DFS. And even Sam would be the first
I
to
think that was
admit
just the sheer size of it, though, because it's a massive site.
But everything was grey, like everything.
Yeah.
It was cool, but so now it's completely different. Like, if you walked somebody in there now compared to when they first opened, you wouldn't think you were in the same venue.
No, well, you've got Eighth there. That's an own restaurant. And that's got 2 bars attached to it, and you've got your private dining room, and then they've sort of partitioned off all the little seating areas with curtains and partitions, so
They've
you
got
don't
some
really.
exciting things coming up, man, as well. Like some of the plans they have to even go even further. Like, it's
Oh yeah, you wait till you hear them, mate.
yeah, it's a great story. Have a good listen and hope you enjoy it, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Morgan. Morgan from Craft and many other businesses. Welcome on Breaking Bread. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good thanks. It's a reasonably sunny Monday evening.
Don't
which is
jinx
a
it, man.
rarity.
I am sick of the rain. I think you announced barbecues or something. Didn't you have these guest barbecues? And since then it's rained.
Well, I mean, luckily for me, it hasn't rained on either of those Sundays. So Obviously,
been all right.
Actars was the first one, and that was nice and warm actually. Garrus was kind of mediocre and overcast.
Coming
yeah.
from Wales, like he'd be well used
It
to
was
that.
a
He'd be
beautiful
alright.
day for him.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Plenty of lamb on the menu, as they say.
Anyone who doesn't know, Sam owns Crafts. It's in the centre of Birmingham in Symphony Hall. Awesome place. Like we've been. Well, Carl's been twice now. I've been once.
Yeah, it's beautiful inside.
Loved it.
The food's fantastic. Yeah.
Crafts about 2 years old now.
Yeah, so founded Craft in 2019 with my wife. Obviously, since then it's been adapted a few times. You know, in its kind of setup. We've now obviously got 2 restaurants in one building, which is Craft and 8, and that's soon to change as well. So Craft is going to be split down into 2 restaurants again. So we'll end up with 3 in the same building because we've got the terrace, which is going to be live cooking over fire, pretty cool. And then the dining room, which is going to be what everyone kind of knows and already loves about Craft. That's going to stay as it is. But I think we've started to realise that the terrace probably needed something a little bit different. And that gives us a bit of a new dimension to the city once again.
Is that going to be outdoors then? Outdoors fire cooking, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're building a kitchen outside, just in front of the pods where everyone dines. So the pods will be circulating around the kitchen. They'll see the chefs cooking live, direct over fire, no electric, no gas, pure wood and coal, cooking, you know, big slabs of meat and things like that. So,
man.
yeah, again, something just
Perfect.
a bit different. Exactly.
And is that like a separate menu to Craft, or is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone going on the website now would see that there's a terrace menu, which goes live on the 30th of June, which is going to be the live cooking over fire. And then we've got the dining room menu, which is the you know, the food that you would have tried previously, and you know, that's going to be elevated and pushed a bit harder. And then what we realise is that Craft's a bit of a beast. It does about 300 covers on a Saturday, you know, and maintaining, you know, a high grade, sort of high quality fine dining type environment probably isn't very conducive to a pod outside on a terrace, you know, with music blaring. So we realised that the venue had the ability to be split again. So we have 8, which is the kind of jewel in the crown, piece de la resistance, as they say. We then got the terrace, which is the kind of fun, vibrant, fun dining, and then you can go for an intimate a la carte meal in Craft's dining room. So I'd like to think that the venue's now got something for everyone.
Isn't there going to be a space room or something as well soon? Like a dessert taster menu.
Where did you hear that? Yes, there's going to be Planet 8. That won't be separate as such. That is part of 8.
Yeah.
It's kind of 8's third room, because we've also got the V8 lounge, the main dining room, which where you've both dined for 8, and then there's going to be the third room, which is going to be Planet 8, which guests can go after their meal and have essentially an after party.
Yeah.
Which is going to be something, again, quite cool and quite funky.
Yeah, it does look. It sounds great.
Yeah, so it's kind of, you know, if everyone remembers when Craft was first born, it was called Craft Dining Rooms. I suppose in its truest form, it is a load of rooms now, all doing something different. So it's a bit like Toys R Us, you know, it's something for everyone.
It's sort of not partition, but there's a lot of curtains up, and it's a lot more separate than it was before. Because its first go, it was just a big room, wasn't it, with lots of tables in.
Yeah, it was
Big old place.
Yeah, its first go, I got it all wrong, and that's the reality. It was a complete car crash waiting to happen. You know, it was like a big, massive staff canteen, a cross between DFS, as Andy would call it, and you know, and Five Guys, and it was just completely. I just didn't have it right, and that was the reality. We've now used the site and its versatility, you know, to our advantage, and started to split the room up using a mixture of glass and voile curtains, which gives, you know, an element of you know, intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, good friend of mine, you know, from the city, Akhtar Islam, said to me once, you need to make a restaurant appeal to the women. It doesn't matter what the guys think, because the guys will follow.
Yeah.
And I think he had that right. And when Andy, you know, arrived and you know, enjoying me in running Craft, he also said to me, make this place Instagrammable, and you know, everyone will come. And that was really what we've done you
Well, that's my
over
wife.
us.
The first thing she said is just everything on this is an Instagram picture.
Yeah,
Which it's the way a lot of things are going. People are there and they've got their phones next to their food
yeah,
and taking photos of everything while eating. And
yeah. And part of that theory frustrates me, in the sense that really it should be about the quality of service and quality of food, and not, a style over substance situation. But equally, if you can provide all three,
if you can get them all on the cards,
then why not?
That's why Andy's a massive piece of that, because he understands the importance of Instagram and social and marketing. But
it's
then,
free advertising essentially. If you've done it and it's beautiful and someone takes a photo and it looks good online, that's going to be everywhere.
But
you haven't had to pay for that.
No,
but
absolutely.
But at the base of that, you've got to have really nice food as well. Like, it can't just look fucking good. Like, it's got to be.
Well, there are some places that just they look good and then they're not.
Yeah, but they don't last. They don't last. No, they don't last. They all get found out in the end. They all get a visit from Simon Carter and gets torn apart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you are right though. There is plenty of Instagrammable venues that seem to be style over substance and do, for some strange reason, last the test of time. I think the understanding of what good quality actually is sometimes somewhat forgotten or not considered, in the right vein. And I think it's partly my job to try and readdress that balance, and that's what I have been trying to do for some time now, and try and educate sometimes the general public into what is considered great and what is actually just mediocre or poor.
So what was it that led you? Because what did you do before craft, and how did you end up in a position to buy a restaurant? Because it was your first restaurant, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Why did I get into the restaurant game? I've been known for my stupidity, and and this one's probably top up there. I suppose I've had a strange career. I worked for Her Majesty's government for a number of years in a number of sort of law enforcement capacity roles, which was completely left field. I came out of that sector after a number of high-profile incidents in London. I just kind of got a bit disillusioned with, what we were doing for a very small amount of money, and I went into looking after celebrities, high-profile celebrities, some very well-known names, and I did that for a number of years. So I was the opposite, really, paid really well for essentially giving them advice on their security and making sure that they were looked after, and that was very, very well received, and I did very well at it. I think after a while I realised that it was kind of no life for a family.
Yeah.
And an incident back in 2009 brought me to Redditch, so not too far from where we are now. And I attended a good lad who was a special forces soldier who had been killed in Afghan. I met his sister, who I actually met, some years before, but I met her again, and we ended up married. And that's Emma, who is involved with the restaurants as well with us. And I decided that kind of was no life for having a family and settling down, because 1 minute you're in America, then you're in the Far East, and you're all over the place in that kind of role. So I decided to ditch it all in, and I'd made quite a bit of money from doing it, and I was like, what do I do next? Where do I what do I do with my skill set of law enforcement and high profile security? Really, it's a bit a bit work. What I realised was that I had a set of skills that could be adapted and transferred, and a lot of that was around my knowledge around the law. So I decided to actually go into white sort of corporate world, corporate finance, buying and selling businesses, and started that in 2012. I was very successfully founded a few education and training companies that did adult education, and then I was a chief exec or group chief exec of a large business called HCO, quite a few thousand staff, very prolific, across Europe. I then decided to leave there, and in, trying to think back now, 2016, 17, founded a business called Alacrity Group with two other people. And after a couple of years, I sold that business to them, and kind of came away from it. and decided that we wanted to do something that we were quite passionate about. And my wife's from the hospitality sector, so she had worked in the hospitality sector for a number of years. Businesses that you might know, things like Chicago Rock Cafe, Luminar Leisure, the nightclubs, things like that.
Yeah.
And one thing we were prolific eater-outers. And you know what? As many people have always said to me, just because you eat out a lot doesn't mean you should go and buy a bloody restaurant. And sometimes it's great. Well, I definitely right back at the beginning, should have bloody listened to them. Thankfully now things have definitely turned around. But that's something we wanted to do. And we went at it, and we went at it full steam ahead. And I had someone that I was due to work with, so was going to be partners with myself and Emma. And he was a reasonably high-profile chef. He was going to come to Birmingham, open the restaurant with me. And unfortunately, he didn't move from Ireland across. And we had to kind of sort it out ourselves, really.
All right.
And that was the beginning of, I'd say, where I started to get it wrong. Because the reason that the business is successful now is because myself, Emma and Andy are extremely close and work extremely closely. He brings a different dimension to what I have to offer and whatever Emma has to offer, but collectively it's the right recipe, excuse the pun. But when I first started, didn't have any of that. No. And we were kind of just bumbling by with what we thought was right, until someone told me it wasn't. And I had to listen to them.
Who was that?
It was Akhtar Islam. So, there's everyone knows he's a good mate of mine. We first met many years ago when Michael Bublé came to Birmingham, and I had the pleasure of looking after Michael Bublé's tour, and we went to Lausanne for dinner, and that's kind of where it all started. And obviously he moved on from Lausanne quite rightly and opened Dauphine, which my own personal opinion is it's one of the greatest restaurant assets that we have to Birmingham. Really.
Oh, not just Birmingham, mate. It's one of the best in the country. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah, and he came for lunch and then sat me down and told me everything that was wrong.
That was a fun conversation, wasn't it?
And I think at the time, I got a bit shirty with him, like as you kind of do. But then I kind of walked away from there and realised that he was right.
Was that something quite unusual in all the jobs and businesses you've run before? Are you used to people standing back up to you and saying being that honest?
Yeah. No, I am to a degree.
How do you receive it well, or are you a bit?
You never do. Look,
I'm awful at it. Just
saying. I think at first I took it a little bit personal. You do when you put so much effort into something, and you think that you've got it right, and then someone tells me that you got it categorically wrong. And I think the reason that I was a bit like about it was, I think deep down I probably knew. I knew he was right, and that's kind of worse. And you think, and when you're a kind of a born perfectionist, like I'm my own world's biggest critic, and I always want to get things right. When I don't, I beat myself up about it. I kind of felt like I had made those fuck-ups, basically. So in the end, you either listen to someone who knows what they're talking about and adopt the changes that they're suggesting, or alternatively you don't and you bury your head in the sand. And fortunately, I decided to do the first, and that was probably the defining moment and why craft still exists. Because if I didn't, the chances are it wouldn't be here now. And that was the first kind of thing that I did that in the restaurant trade, where I thought, I've got that right, and that was me listening, putting my ears back and listening to someone who quite frankly knew more than I did. And then the second, I suppose, defining moment about why craft is where it is now is bringing Andy in. He's the one, alongside myself and Emma, that's driven the business forward. He's brought new people in, a new team in, and it's gone from strength to strength. And even with COVID and all those things that have been thrown at us, he's weathered the storm with me. He's the hardest worker I've ever come across in life, and The guy's got so much passion, you know.
It's not just that, talent as well.
Oh, God,
His
yeah.
ideas and his food are so...
Yeah.
They're really amazing.
It's passion and enthusiasm. It's infectious, isn't it? Like we met him, we were like, oh, we finished the podcast with him. I wanted to be a chef.
I felt like I've
Well,
been
imagine
drinking a load of
working with him every day,
espressos.
you know. It's I think the easiest way of saying it is that I fell out of love with the hospitality sector as quickly as I fell into it, and it was the things that he did that made me fall back in love with it, and why I continue now to work every hour God sends, just like he does, and just like Emma does, to make the business a success.
How close were you just to calling it a day and saying, you know, we tried this restaurant thing, it just hasn't worked?
Oh, you know what? I don't give up at anything. I really don't. And
So you were willing to go down with the ship?
yeah. I mean, Titanic, you know, is definitely going to be the word with that one. I would have done, because I don't tend to give up. It doesn't mean that along that journey I'll like being in that position, because you know I wasn't. I was absolutely 100% hating it. I was hating every single day until he joined, and then it was very, very quickly that started to change, and I could start to realise the potential. And then for me, if I can realise the potential, I can invest in it more. That's not just financially, but time-wise and everything else. And that's really, you know, why it is where it is. You know, it's interesting. When you run an independent restaurant, very different to chains. Yeah, we don't have a manual that tells us how to deal with people. That's not how we operate. You know, I don't want to operate that way. I just want people to come and have a good time. And there's no standard operating procedure about how that should look, because every guest is different, and that's what's interesting about the hospitality sector. You know, Craft welcomes about 1,000 people a week, and the reality is their idea of what's great, what's bad, and what's indifferent is all different. Yeah, you might
Very
like
subjective,
it, you might not. Oh God, yeah. But never have I ever run a business where 1,000 people can come through that business every week, and every single one of them is entitled to their opinion on whether or not your business is good or shit.
Yeah.
And not only are they entitled to their opinion, but they voice it too.
Yeah.
If it's not on Facebook, it's on Instagram. If it's not on Instagram, it's on Twitter. If it's not on Twitter, it's on TwatAdvisor. If it's not on that, then it's on Google. And it's constant. And you can't get away from it.
Do you check TripAdvisor often? Or?
TwatAdvisor. Yeah, I do. Look, it's a necessary evil, and that's the reality.
I don't know if I would if I was a restaurant owner. I'm not sure. It's a double-edged sword. It's like feedback is a gift, but I don't know if I fucking want it. you know what I mean?
You can go from euphoria to, you know, a big flat downer, you know, in a matter of seconds. What I always remind myself is, and if you read our TwatAdvisor, you'll see this. I remind myself that I have the last word, because I have the right to reply.
Yeah.
And I always say to guests or people, if you're going to leave feedback, do it in the right way. Because I'm telling you now, if you don't, the response will be far worse than you can ever imagine. Because there's a movement in the sector now, I believe, particularly amongst independent restaurants, where no longer is it acceptable to believe that the customer is always right. Because quite frankly, they're not always right. You know, I had a customer who spent 15 minutes shouting at me down the phone last Monday because I should have told her that the traffic was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, with the greatest respect, I didn't know where she was travelling from. To have a bloody
Well, you know,
overnighter.
she lives in the city centre.
I have no fucking idea. She could have been getting the bus, the train. Do you know what I mean? She could have been flying by helicopter. You know, I don't bloody know. But some strange reason, there seems to be this kind of existence that people think that we should be, you know,
the whole
involved
experience,
in
even from leaving their house, is somehow your
exactly.
problem.
And depending on what's happened between leaving your house and arriving at our restaurant would depend upon what mindset you're in before you walk through the door, and whether or not you think it's a great experience or a poor one. Like being stuck in traffic and pissed off because Birmingham's a nightmare to drive in at the moment, suddenly becomes the restaurant's issue. Well, unfortunately, there's not a great deal I can do about that. I wish there was. The same as when Boris said that everyone could open outdoors.
Yeah.
and people book outdoor tables, and then unfortunately the weather's not great. Well, suddenly that also becomes Sam's issue too.
Yeah.
You know,
The
there
only thing
has
I'd
to be a
say
line.
about TripAdvisor is like, I do read it often. I like reading it. I'm a sadist like that, but it's so like when you see like the one on the top of my head is Paul Foster at Salt, who's obviously famous for TripAdvisor. But like when he had that review where he said like he tried to stab his granny with a steak knife or something and showed her his willy or something like that. But you read that and like everyone who reads that looks at that and goes, no, he didn't. That's ridiculous. Like, so it's not like anyone would say, I'm not going to that restaurant. He's going to stab me with a steak knife and show me his willy. But, like, the absurd looks absurd, even to the customer. Like,
Yep.
so no one's going to base whether they're going to go on that one review. And then I think I've read like a stat, like even after reading negative reviews, like 90% of people will still go.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think it's as important as we think. I know it's hard to read, but I wouldn't like let it ruin my life.
We've got a 1-star TripAdvisor because a customer came and he wanted more low-calorie options.
That definitely wasn't us.
And you know, my response hit, you know, front page news, Birmingham Mail, because you know I slammed him for it and said, well, maybe you should have looked at the bloody menu before you arrived.
Yeah, it's
you know.
online.
I hate to say it, but when you book a restaurant, you know, looking at the menu is kind of the defining thing, isn't it, really? But for some strange reason in Birmingham, a lot of people book restaurants without looking at menus.
I'm terrible. I read the menu. I know the
Back
menu.
to
I don't. I walk into a restaurant.
Yeah.
Like I don't need the menu. I know what I'm having.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you know, it's a bit of a strange one, but you know, I will accept criticism when it's fair.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, if you do get a lot of reviews and like you notice like there's something that pops up nearly in every review, then you think, oh, actually, you know, maybe that is something we need to look at. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if 8 out of 10 people said the restaurant's really cold, for example,
Yeah.
you'd think,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
the restaurant's
maybe
probably
we need
cold.
Yeah, exactly.
But you'd kind of hope they'd tell the staff there, and that'd get passed on to you.
Yeah, but they don't.
They don't necessarily have to put it online, do they?
No,
It's one of them.
No, they don't. They don't. But some people feel it's their God-given right to go on, you know, to TripAdvisor, and equally, it's my God-given right to reply. So
Yeah, the good thing and the bad thing about the internet is it gives everyone a voice.
That's the thing with TripAdvisor. I do go on it a lot. Tend to be when I go to a city that I'm unfamiliar with.
yeah,
But if somewhere's got some negative reviews, if the owner's always come back and explained, or there's a response
Yeah.
to a negative review,
yeah.
for me that turns into a positive review because the
you
owner
know they
obviously
care.
cares. He's not just ignoring all these.
No. So you know, I think it's definitely interesting times now. You know, it's you know, I did wonder after the COVID situation, would the hospitality sector have, you know, would it adapt and would it change? Would the general public perceive it in a different way? But you know, unfortunately, I don't think they have. Not yet, anyway.
We'd like to think everyone's like jumped on board the be kind message, but nobody like.
Do you know what I see?
Too
I see
optimistic.
a 50-50 split now. You know, we it's you know, it's frustrating because I was one of the first, I suppose, in the sector to really push hard on cancellation charges for no shows, you know, taking deposits and things like that, because the way I see it is that the chair in the restaurant is no different to the chair at the theatre or the chair at the concert.
Or the airplane,
Or
whatever
the airplanes or the
should-
trains or whatever it
yeah,
might
yeah.
be. And I think that has definitely changed the situation for our restaurant for the better. Our no-show rate is now sub 1%, whereas before it was 26.8%.
Jesus.
That was horrendous. Across the year, that would have cost our business £500,000 in a lost revenue.
Jesus.
You know, the sector is fraught with no-show issues. It reportedly cost the sector $3 billion a year. And I don't think the general public, it's wrong for me to say that. I don't think that I think there's a proportion of the general public that really don't comprehend what the consequences of their actions are when they book a table and simply do not turn up.
No.
You know, the cost of that to that restaurant is significant.
Yeah. To not even let them know. I mean, we're talking a phone call here.
Yeah.
It's going
Yeah.
to take you 30 seconds to look it up on your phone, 10
Yeah.
seconds to make the call and say, sorry,
Yeah.
so and so, this time I can't make it. I'm really
Yeah.
sorry. Something's come up.
It's not even just the money wise, it's like the whole atmosphere of a restaurant as well. You imagine like somewhere like 8. So if a couple or 4 people don't show, that's half the restaurant's empty all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a real issue
You know,
in 8. I mean,
That's the atmosphere gone. Like
you know,
imagine the
8
wilderness, like, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the high-end restaurants, that's why a lot of them go down the prepayment route,
Yeah.
or at least a significant deposit, in order to get and address those issues. But, that's just one of the battles that we have at the moment. And, we mentioned the wilderness. I know Alex extremely well. We've worked together, on the Birmingham hospitality group stuff. And, I saw him putting out a Twitter to say people had no-showed. I just think, what's the...
He's already had it, hasn't he, this week?
Yeah.
All red.
Yeah.
What the worst bit is whenever he has like a late cancellation, he'll put it on Twitter and it's filled within like an
Of
hour.
course it is, because
So if somebody phoned,
anyway.
if somebody phoned and cancelled, like he'd get them replaced. Like that's a heartbreaking thing.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's a positive podcast, but we've just had COVID and it's hard not to talk about it. I mean, see, you got off to a rocky start.
Yeah.
It's fair to say, and then the ship steadied when Andy came along,
Yeah.
and you started bouncing off ideas. The restaurant started changing, and then all of a sudden, COVID hit.
Yeah, so I mean, Andy joined in November 2019, and we had the kind of Christmas storm that Andy had to deal with. We had a million turkey dinners to put out, and turkey dinners are not really Andy's thing. They're not really my thing either. But hey, we had to do it because that was what was booked. We then did the first initial change to the restaurant, reopened in January, and then subsequently, bang, in March, Boris says don't go to restaurants.
Doesn't close them, just says don't go.
Yeah, just says don't go.
Yeah.
Avoid them.
Now,
Takes your money away and gives you no lifeline from it
I was the
whatsoever.
first restaurateur, I believe, and apologies to anyone if there was someone before me that said I'm closing. I closed on that Monday. I said we're not opening, and we're closing. And I knew that I had to do that because if no one, like literally all the bookings just came boom, 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 cancellation through the system. We went at that point from having a few hundred booked to having none. And the longer I keep the business open, the more money it's going to cost. So I decided to close on the Monday. Other people stayed open in the city in the hope that some people would still turn up. And I'll never forget it. Myself and Andy went to Pulperia, and we sat in Pulperia on a Wednesday night, and we're the only ones sat in that restaurant, that beautiful restaurant, with myself, Andy, and Akhtar, eating steak. And we were like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Like, no one really knew at this point what was coming. Even me that had worked for the government for the amount of years that I had, wasn't sure what was coming. And obviously he then followed on the Thursday with compulsory closure, and then the Chancellor comes out with don't worry, everyone's protected. I used to call it Good News Rishi Friday every Friday. So Boris would give you shit news, and then Rishi would come out and try and soften the blow a little bit with some kind of waffle about, furlough or whatever he'd come out with. So furlough came in play, which allowed us to protect the team because, the cash reserves were certainly going to run out if we were left, carrying the payroll with absolutely no income.
Which in fairness it's a bit of a relief because you worry about your team and keep an eye on them. So that's a good.
They're the greatest asset in a restaurant, aren't they?
Of course they are.
We can forget about the tables and chairs and the lovely wall curtains and the glass and those crazy spaceship pod things that we've got outside. All of that's pretty pointless in the end if you don't have good people, because that's really all it boils down to in the end, good people. So yeah, we were hell-bent on trying to protect as many people as we possibly could. And, did I have the answers in that first week? No, I didn't. Did the Chancellor give us some of the answer? To a degree, yeah. But that was only part of the problem. So, we were then subsequently closed, and we were closed from March all the way through to July. And what myself and Andy said was, there's absolutely no bloody way that we're going to sit at home scratching our backside trying to work out what to do next.
Yeah.
We have to use this time of closure to fast forward our plans for the redevelopment of the site. So many people said to me, "Oh, you're an absolute fool. Why would you be investing in something you don't even know when it's going to be reopened?" And I used this kind of stupid comment to try and get people off my back with it, and it was, our fortune favours the brave. It was one of those dumbass comments, really. But at the time, I kind of looked at Andy, and the truth of it is, I had faith in him and I had faith in the team. If we could just get back open, and we could fast forward the changes that we had in plan, because what I didn't want to do was sit at home while being forced to be closed, doing nothing, and then reopen and then have to close because I want to put the changes in. It's just kind of pointless. So we fast forwarded all of them. We moved the bar up the top and we changed everything around during that period. Massive amount of work. We reopened in July. And it started well. It was good. And we were left with this whopping great bar down the bottom. And I was going to Andy, like, what are we going to do with this bar? And we were like, should we do an open kitchen with it? We came up with all sorts of nonsense ideas about what to do with this whopping great bar. And then both of us stood looking at the glass panel doors that were there originally. And I was like, there's 8 glass panel doors. He's like, I became a chef on the 8th day of the 8th month. I was like, could we turn this into a restaurant? And that's really where that all started. And we were like, yeah, we can. And that was the kind of birth of 8, and that was July 2020. And in true typical Sam and Andy style, we decided that we wanted to try and execute that in the shortest possible time and get it open. And that's what we did. We run it at 200 miles an hour and got it open for October. So we opened it on October the 8th, which was Andy's anniversary of becoming a chef. And then Boris told us 3 weeks later we're closed again. And this time, it was the whole kind of closed for November, but you might be able to reopen in December.
Yeah.
So we're like, a month. All right. We'll get by. It's just a month. So we got to the end of the month and we're thinking Christmas is going to be big. The bookings in the system, we could not move for bookings. And then it was bang. No, actually, you're in tier 3 and tier 3's got no hospitality open, so you're closed still. And then, of course, we were closed all the way through till May.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yep. But once again, during that period, we used the time wisely to fast forward the rest of the remaining plans to fit it into the same period again. And then we reopened in May. I never forget it when we switched the booking system on after Boris had given the roadmap out. We switched that booking system on and I took 1,300 covers in 26 minutes.
Jesus.
Like, the system was going absolutely ape. And people were just booking like wildfire. And ever since then, getting a chair in our place is now a challenge.
Mm.
And I think to myself, what did we do over that lockdown period that changed the destiny of this restaurant for the better during a time of national crisis? I'm not too sure. But in the weirdest kind of way, COVID caused us problems, significant problems, but equally helped us. I can't put my finger on what it is or why or how, but it in some ways gave us the time to readdress and rebalance what we were doing.
Yeah.
But for the sector, it's been rocky.
Well, you've been at the forefront of pushing the sector, and I mean, I've seen you on TV, I've heard you on the radio, I've messaged you after just seeing you on the radio, say well done and stuff, and you've really been pushing hard and pushing the government, and especially Andy Street and people like that why this is happening. Because for a lot of restaurateurs, rate of how you could catch COVID in hospitality was minimal. It was tiny amount
Yeah.
compared to other stuff that was still open.
Yeah.
And they even opened shops first before restaurants, and shops like you stood next to people. Most people aren't even wearing, well, not most, but some people don't even wear masks in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, I think it was the first lockdown, one of the safest places I feel is in a restaurant because you've got your own table, the waiting staff have got masks on, you're socially distanced. Like, it's one of the safest places outside your own house you could be, would be in a restaurant.
Well, sometimes, it's arguably safer to be in a restaurant with people from outside your household than it is to be in your house with them.
Yeah.
Because of the standards that we adopted during from the guidance. We also have high levels of cleanliness. Well, the vast majority of restaurants do. Equally, some don't, but the vast majority do. So, it began, I think, the hospitality sector started to question why it was being, I hate to say it, kind of picked on.
Yeah.
Because it felt like that.
I think it was. I think it was definitely picked on.
It felt like that, and it felt significantly unreasonable, the measures that were being put in place. And the local restrictions, I think, were the worst. Because what that started to do to the hospitality sector was pit one restaurant against another. And that drove a significant kind of resentment, really. I remember when Birmingham in December was in lockdown, but Worcestershire wasn't. So around here, where I live, it wasn't. So, I could go into Barnt Green High Street and see a couple of pubs open, Barnt Green Inn and the Vic, people in there having a good time. My restaurant in Birmingham just down the road's closed.
It was ludicrous. I mean, the two pubs at the Lickies, they were obviously made famous at that time, and
on the border.
Yeah, opposite side of the road, and one was open, one was closed.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we had all of that, and that essentially was driving a wedge, straight down the middle of the sector between whether or not you just happen to fold into the right postcode lottery. And that that really, really got my goat. It was obviously well versed. I threatened legal action on the national government.
Wasn't it you and you had 250 odd people backing you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did everything in order to raise the plight of the sector and try and address it. The nature of the beast was that you kind of felt like it was definitely David and Goliath. That was for certain.
I was going to say, the ironic thing is, like, some of the hospitality voices that would be bigger and louder, they were silent. But no, like M&B, Wetherspoons, big companies like that, they were to be seen. Like,
yeah, absolutely. But this is the difference between independent venues and some of the big corporate giants. When you actually have a look at the level of support that some of the corporate giants got, you actually question whether or not it was in their interest to be open or closed. And that was the difference. When you're in Birmingham city centre and you're a independent restaurant and your rent bill is 10 grand a month, and your rates bill, albeit had been wiped for the vast majority of that period, is another 6 or 7 grand. The electric with the standing charges, the gas and everything else, and everyone goes, oh, but you're a restaurant, you're closed, you're not using the electric. Yeah, you're not. But the standing charges are £1,500 a month just for, not even having the light switch on.
Yeah.
Oh, but the government charges you your national insurance. So in one thing, they said, oh, there's furlough. But they expected the employer that was closed, the restaurant, to pay the national insurance on the employees and the pension. What a lot of people don't realise is that between the period of closure all the way up until this period now, in national insurance and in pension contributions, our business had to pay 137 grand.
While taking nothing, yeah.
Where did that money come from? Where did all these restaurant owners, independent restaurant owners, they had to dive into their life savings to keep their bloody restaurants and their business afloat?
Yeah. I'm amazed how. There has been some there's been places that have closed in Birmingham, which is really sad. But I'm amazed there isn't more. Like the resilience of the people, especially in Birmingham, seems to have they've really dug deep and found ways just to make ends meet.
I think the question will be is, have we seen the end of it?
Yeah.
You know, we tragically lost, Opus only last week.
That was a big loss. Yeah.
Which, was considered probably one of the largest independent venues in the city, been around for years. That business should never be in a position where it's gone from this great city. It just shouldn't happen. We were lucky, I suppose, that I was in a financial position to be able to protect the business, because we didn't get any other real help apart from a piddly grant here or there. So in reality, that was luck. Really, that luck was on our side. There's other businesses that unfortunately have not been so lucky, and there's other businesses that are open but are straddled with debt, so their owners can't even pay themselves a wage anymore.
No.
And there'll be a lot of businesses that don't necessarily fall over because they don't have the income, but there'll be a point where the owners start to question why they're doing it.
Yeah, they're just constantly paying off interest on debt, and they're just making. There's no future in it, basically.
No, there's not. And making all those businesses take out loans, which have got interest charged on them by big corporate banks.
Yeah, it's mental.
I hate to say it, but you have a look at the big six are reportedly going to be making about 32 billion in interest off of all the COVID-19 support, loans that have been issued. 30 odd billion? What? Where does that come from? No. What's all that about?
On the back of small businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mad. During this pandemic, the rich people, the really rich people, have just got a lot richer. Which the mind boggles.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. We have some real strange things going on. There was 3 million people not supported with any support in relation to furlough or anything like that. But if you're on furlough, you can go and work for another employer and get furlough money and get paid again.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Why did the government do that? I could never quite comprehend that. We had people in hospitality who were on furlough getting paid 80% of their wages, then going and working for Amazon and earning again. But the guy down the road, because he's self-employed, didn't get a penny. How does that work?
Yeah.
So there was things like that I couldn't get my head around.
Have you managed? Oh, sorry, carry on.
And unfortunately for the vast majority of people in our great city, I think they realise that I'm not one of those that kind of minces my words. I kind of just say it as I see it, and that was a travesty and a complete piss take personally. But we're back open now, and we're kind of fighting just like every other venue is in order to survive. And the one thing I think that came out of COVID was those venues united in the Birmingham Hospitality Group, things like that. It brought together operators that had never even spoken before. I'm taking my team to a restaurant in the city, and they're bringing their team. So now all of a sudden there seems to be a bit more unitedness. We've all got each other's back, whereas before everyone was out for themselves a little bit.
Yeah, there was nothing to bring you all together essentially, but now you've all got a common.
No, absolutely we have. Yeah, we've all got a common ground.
Because people forget Birmingham's a big city, and it's the independent scene's not that big.
Not really.
So you've all got to look after each other a little bit.
Yeah, especially at the sort of mid to higher end. A lot of the independents, you see loads of it on the street food market, and all that kind of stuff, which is a completely different scene and quite cool and quite vibrant. But amongst sort of the middle to high end venues, you could literally name them all on two hands.
Definitely. Yeah. Did you manage to keep hold of most of your team, or?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few that kind of moved on, but there was no one left behind in respect of being protected under the furlough agreement or anything along those lines. When we reopened, a couple of people, typically people that weren't from the UK.
Yeah, I was about to say a lot of people are obviously struggling because of Brexit. Like a lot of people that are talking about how Brexit's affected the hospitality sector. Yep. I mean, I'd say London's probably twice as bad as Birmingham would be for it, but you just have to go on Instagram. The amount of places looking for staff, like looking for team members, is crazy. Like
100%. finding staff now is the biggest challenge. The hospitality sector is not necessarily seen as a fashionable choice. There is a few people that want to become, the next Jason Atherton or the next Gordon Ramsay, but chefs that make it, what we're talking, the top 1%, really?
Yeah, probably.
All the top end chefs in our city, you can name them now, couldn't you? And that's the thing. But what you forget is the size of the brigades that are standing behind them, and they're the ones that don't make it, and don't make it to be on television and probably get to the pinnacle of their career of earning 30 grand a year, but working bloody hard for it. So, and the problem is there's not enough money in the sector to give them any more. However much we'd love to, it's even worse now. How do we give a pay rise to someone after being pretty much closed for a year and crippled? It's harder and harder. So maintaining good talent and and good people, is the be all and end all at the moment. However, it's also the biggest challenge.
So there's still a storm to come, really.
The storm, we're in it. We're in it, and all the good people, unfortunately, are moving on, and that is naturally an issue.
Tough times.
That's before you get the problems, because it hasn't really hit yet. The major problems. I know Craft doesn't worry about it too much because you source a lot of stuff, and a lot of Craft's vibe is locality and getting stuff from this country.
But
a lot of restaurants import nearly everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
And that's going to have a massive knock-on effect. So.
Our whole wine list is English and Welsh wine, so we don't have the importation challenges or anything along those lines. But you think the whole of the hospitality sector is made up of probably 99.9% importation. I dread to think how that's going to be cutting out at the moment.
Yeah, but it's all going to have to go all down to seasonality and local produce, I think.
It is, and I welcome that to a degree, but I don't know how far that's going to go across the whole sector.
Yeah, it's not like everyone can just do the same. You can't all have asparagus on your menu this time.
No, absolutely
rhubarb
not.
for pudding. It's not going to work,
and
is it?
you've got to have the talent in your business again to be able to execute that. That's the other issue, because it's all well and good buying the best produce, but you know what to do with it. Because the team that I had in prior to Andy arriving wouldn't know what to do with that. No chance.
How much input do you have on the menu and wine list and
I
stuff?
eat it.
You get to try it.
I eat it. That's the greatest part.
You just leave Andy to it, trust him and...
Yeah, absolutely I do. I mean, the greatest thing about Andy is he involves so many people. He bounces off other people. So he's not one of those that will lock himself away in a cupboard and then come out with this, this sort of brainchild. There is lots of people that are involved in it.
I can imagine him in an excitable child, coming up to you, all right, why don't we try this? And then you have to go, I'll think about it, Andy. I'll think about it, mate.
Never is there a day where I don't get Sam, from the kitchen. And I kind of wander in there thinking,
But then again, I'm kind of feeling that you might be similar. So the two of you might be excited, like school kids,
The only difference between
does somebody rein you in, or?
Yeah, the only difference between me and Andy is I'm 6 years older than him. And I think if I think back to 6 years ago when I was his age, I was exactly like that. I think I've probably just calmed down slightly.
Yeah.
But his energy is infectious, and you can't help.
I can just imagine Andy calling you in some mad crazy idea, you adding to that idea, getting all excited, and then going to, I don't know, your wife. No, lads. Lads.
I mean, the latest one.
The eye rolls so hard you could see it, you could feel it.
I remember a few months back, we were going to build a restaurant that was the design of a sweet shop, but we were going to build it out of sweets. That was one of the stupid ideas that both me and him came up with, and we're like, yeah, this would be so cool. And then the customers can eat the walls. What the fuck? But then we're going to be rebuilding them every week, And it was, and then of course we had the artisan street kitchen. That was another crazy brainchild that started in Cornwall. So we went to Cornwall. We stayed in Gordon Ramsay's beach villa thing over.
Yeah, this was
sea.
Near Christmas, wasn't it? It was in a because I was like, hang on, where does Sam live?
Yeah,
this is
really
mental.
Cool. So we got invited down there because I did a lot of work with Gordon when he was doing book signings and stuff like that. So we went down there, stayed there, and we went to Paul Ainsworth number 6. And afterwards, like, Andy's like, you know what we should do? We should get ourselves a street van because Boris had locked us down for a longer period. He's like, yeah, let's go out and let's do street food. Oh my fucking God. That was an absolute nightmare. The second day of this Airstream trailer that we'd just spent a load of money on, I get a phone call. I was sat in the room over there. I got a phone call and it's the lads. And they're like, mate, we've got a bit of a problem. I'm like, why? What's happened? The wheels have fallen off the Airstream. I'm like, yeah, you're fucking winding me up. Piss off. Like, I just thought they were like taking the piss, but no, the wheels had fallen off. But you know what? It was a barrel of laughs during a time where we needed a bit of laughter.
It seemed like good fun.
You know, when we brought all the guest chefs along, so Akhtar did something, Gareth Ward, Tom Shepherd, Paul Foster. You know, we had a right giggle. You know, some of those that, you know, I just think back, you know, it was just a real good time. But I think we soon realised that once the restaurant was open, we couldn't do that as well. So now the Artisan Street Kitchen van is with Ben and Sophia at the Ball over in Boston, servicing, you know,
they're struggling to power it now as well.
Yeah, of course they are. There's the same problems that we had. So
what you're saying is it's just time constraints that rein you in. It's nobody reins you in. It's just time constraints.
Yeah. Do you know what? Sometimes you have to question, you know, is this the right idea? Is this the right thing? And what are we going to achieve out of it? Because, you know, me and Andy are seasoned professionals at being busy fools sometimes, getting ourselves involved in things that, quite frankly, we shouldn't. And
joking aside, if it spawns something as creative and as brilliant as 8, like, keep going. Like,
yeah. Look, you know, we can throw 10 ideas around, and one will be genius, and the other 9 will be absolutely catastrophic. You know, but what came out of the Artisan Street Kitchen van was the barbecues. You know, and look how great they've been. I mean, you know, Sundays, you know, Akhtar, you know, banging out lamb legs and, you know, and on a barbecue, and then Gareth comes and does his barbecue. They've been brilliant, and we've obviously got one on May the 30th with Stuart Collins off Great British Menu, who Andy used to work with, so they both know each other really well. You know, we've got Brad Carter, we've got Alex Bond coming down.
Ronnie's as well coming.
Yeah. So Ronnie's
Greatest Pizza going.
Yeah, Dave from Ronnie's Pizza. He's coming. He's doing the Father's Day barbecue with Andy.
Oh, nice.
And then obviously Gareth's back again on the 29th of August.
I was gonna say, you're just gonna get Gareth his own flat up here soon.
Well, that can be
He
done.
seems to be permanently.
I could just give him a pod, couldn't I? Like?
And a sleeping bag.
Yeah, that's it. But he's another one of those that, you know, he's just a really bloody hard worker. You know, it's like, Gareth, what time did you leave to get here from Wales? Oh, I left at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, they just wanted to have a gig. They've been closed for bloody yonks as well. You know, in Wales, you know, the Mark Drayford is even crazier than Boris. I mean, so they've been closed for even longer.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just wanted to we just wanted to have fun. And that was really what the barbecues were all about. Let's just have fun, like we did on the van, but how do we do that utilising craft? And that, I suppose, was what spurred us the idea to put the outdoor kitchen in. So, yeah, we're kind of really happy with it.
You're going with the big country fire setup, the whole
That's
big...
it. Yeah.
I love them. I'm
Big,
obsessed
massive
with them.
green eggs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've seen, isn't it you and Andy that put them in at the Bull's Head in Boston as well?
Yeah, we
Big
told them to
outdoor
put
kitchens.
the outdoor kitchen in.
I love that idea. I walked in, I was like, Ben, you've got to let me have a day here cooking. I've got to have a practice on these.
Well, what that was, you know, the guys at the board obviously, you know, bought this massive pub, and, you know, we had outdoor dining to deal with and everything else, and, you know, they had to refurb the kitchen, and then they got planning permission on the bar, and there's just so much going on. In the end, we just said, like, you know, for such a small investment, you put an outdoor kitchen in there, and people will flood this terrace.
It's a nice terrace as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really
So,
pretty.
I mean, they got that terrace built in like 2.5 weeks. The guys that had been working on craft went over there and started trying to build this terrace, and they were still building it literally, I think, about an hour before the first customers were coming through the door. But, you know, I think it's been well worth it from them. And, you know, obviously what the Bull needed was good people to run it. And, you know, who better than the guys that were originally at the Little Blackwood. Who
Well, they don't need any introduction, but
Yeah,
they get mentioned every
we're
podcast
biased,
from
like.
us. Yeah, they're good friends, and
yeah,
Ben's just a super talent, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, of course he is, man. We can't say otherwise. He's our mate. Like, can't slag him
Yeah.
off.
No. Well, it's no need to. It's just he's a genius.
I think Little Blackwood was Birmingham's hidden gem.
Oh, I do.
personally.
I think it was. I was so sad to see it was closed. I mean, I was over the moon because where they've moved to it's an equal distance to my house. It's
Yeah.
just the other direction, so it makes no odds to me. But
Yeah,
Birmingham needed Little Blackwood, and it needs more because you
Yeah.
go to London, there's a Little Blackwood on every road.
yeah.
In Birmingham, that was
Yeah.
the only one. I think there's
Yeah.
one more now, and it's Verbena in
Yeah.
Sturchley's open, but that's probably it.
Little Blackwood had the opportunity to be what the Little French is in Bristol, and I don't know if you know about that. But
Yeah.
that place is a bit of a phenomenon. But unfortunately, certain individuals, namely landlords,
Yeah.
get in the way of that, and
Trying to charge.
that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? So unfortunately for that landlord, he's lost his greatest asset, and that place now
No.
sits empty. But that's his own.
We've had our rants
I
about that,
agree.
haven't we,
Yeah,
on the podcast?
Yeah.
So people listening might notice that you haven't got a local Brummie or Midlands accent. Said you came before we started recording. You said you came to Birmingham about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you notice a big difference in the food scene 10 years ago and the food scene now in Birmingham? And like, what were your first impressions 10 years ago, if you can remember? Or
I'm trying to think. For the first so it was 2010 that I moved. I lived in London, all my life. I travelled the world pretty much with work. When I first came to Birmingham, I'm just trying to think of the first restaurants. I think the first restaurant in Birmingham I went to was Lasam when Akhtar was there, and obviously it was with Michael. And I think now that was circa 2008. And Lasam was great when he had it.
Yeah, it was really good. I went a few times when he was there.
It was exceptional, and I was always a big fan of Purnell's. I've been to Glyn's lots of times, and I loved going there. I think it's definitely got more going on now than what it once did. There's a lot more on offer now. I think that obviously it's got more starred restaurants now than what it once did, but there's also a few restaurants that don't have a star that are nipping at their heels.
There's certainly some that I'm stunned that they haven't got.
Yeah,
to be
I think
honest.
this might be just timing.
Yeah, they could be.
Circumstance. Maybe there's a bit of politicalness in there somewhere along the line, and
I can only think that they just don't want Birmingham to have more than say 5 or 6 stars.
I don't know. I think the nature of Michelin is you don't know, do you?
No.
I think that I think that it would be wrong of any restaurant owner to say that they wouldn't want one. Of course we do.
I was going to say, is that the pinnacle for you? Do you reckon a Michelin star for Craft or 8?
I think that we at 8 we bear no bones about it. We want one, and we believe that when we get judged this year, that we would like to think that we would be in the running for one. But on the flip side of that, we also just want to do good food. We just want to do good food, good experience, exceptional, and that really is our first defining cause. We don't sit. I think that I always think that accolades and awards are byproduct of doing something extremely well, and that's really where it should be first and foremost. If the inspectors come back in this year, obviously they saw us last year in a very short period that we were open.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure who the inspector was, but we're obviously delighted that they managed to get us into the guide in the first instance.
Well, that's a good start for
this
anyone.
year.
As soon as you get in straight, especially since you'd only been open a couple
3
of weeks
weeks.
at that point.
Yeah, so naturally we were delighted to be included. But have we raised the game this time round upon reopening? Well, you came for dinner.
I came Wednesday. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That was great. Thanks for the invite, and it was stunning. It has gone up.
You think so?
Yeah, I do think so.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
100%. I think of the places in Birmingham, I think there's many places that deserve a Michelin star that already have them. So we've got 5. Is it 5 or 6? 5. We could easily have another 5. You could easily add another 5 to that.
Yeah.
Easily. And 8 would certainly be one of them.
Yeah. So we, for us, if they come back out and they believe that it's, better, then great. We don't necessarily put, huge amounts of pressure on ourselves, in order to get there. But will we do everything we can to ensure that experience is exceptional and like no other in this city or even in this country? Yeah, we will. We will do things that are different because we want to do things that are exciting and bring something in a new dimension to it.
There's certainly nowhere in Britain I've eaten that's like 8.
Yeah, I mean
it's very different and it's very immersive experience.
Yeah, there's not many where you follow a comic book as a menu and and watch a movie alongside your food. It's definitely got I think it's one of those places that could be quite daunting for some people.
Yeah. Well, you've got the head chef in front of you coming up. Do you like that? How often does that happen on every course? What do you think of that?
Yeah. You don't want to say that it's rubbish, do you? But equally, I think I had the pleasure of doing the test run as a guest on the Friday, and I believe it's gone up a significant amount in notches, and
I'd agree, definitely.
And I have the pleasure of working in there. Myself, I go in typically when the covers go over a certain level, to help out. I'm not too sure how helpful I really am. I think maybe I'm good at getting guests to their chairs and stuff like that, but I probably add absolutely zero to the cooking.
That's what owners are for, getting the guests to the chair.
A
warm welcome, that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. So, so I really enjoy that part. I do enjoy going in and joining them. So it's
nice. I think it's good. So you get to kind of be in around it. Like, it's worse if you were just never seen, like in an office somewhere.
Sat in the ivory tower, as they say.
Yeah, sat in the
So
ivory
it's nice to have the
None of
owner
that.
there, and it's nice to have not just the chef in the building, stood in front of you cooking the food.
Well, of course, Andy's not just a chef; he's not a business partner.
Yeah.
He owns as much of that place as I do, and and he's owner at Craft as well, and that's the way I believe it should be. There's absolutely 0 point in me sitting there trying to make out that I can certainly make it happen. I think I can. I've proved that I can't do it on my own. So I think having him there with me, and Jake, who does a marvelous job of the
he's a drinks genius, absolute genius.
And the rest of the team, Sam and Curtis, it's a real cool place to go and spend a couple of hours as a guest, but it's a really cool place to go and work as well. I really enjoy it. So
it's exciting, and it's the turnaround's been brilliant, and you've got a really cool story, and I can see good things happening.
Thank you. I mean, we're going to continue to work hard at it, and we hope that it goes from strength to strength. But we also hope that the city rebounds from this. I think we could really do with the corporate trade back in the city and showing and support. And the guys at places like PwC, they've been to the restaurant a number of times, trying to lend a bit of further support to the hospitality sector. But we need the city back.
Yeah,
live
the corporate
and
side.
such.
Birmingham's quite lucky in the sense that in the centre you've got the NIA and you've got the ICC, you've got people coming into the city still.
Yep.
It's not just a corporate city, there's other reasons to come into the centre.
There is, yeah.
So we are quite lucky with that side of Birmingham. I mean, the ICC, there's something there every night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we unlike London, where 76% of London's hospitality trade is built off the back of either corporate or overseas travel. In Birmingham, that's significantly lower. I think it's about half that. So, it still will have it's still going to have a dramatic effect. And you think the NIA is not reopened yet. That's not had any real major events. Symphony Hall's not, and the ICC are only really going up to 1,000 people, whereas normally they can go up to 20 or 30,000.
Yeah.
We've got the Commonwealth Games to look forward to. We're already seeing people book for that.
Really?
Yeah. We've had inquiries coming through. You sit there scratching your head thinking, God, they're planning ahead, but that's great for us. It builds confidence. Confidence in a business for a business owner allows them to invest more or gives them encouragement to do so. And that can only be a good thing for, people that are coming to dine at the restaurant, or, people from the city. That's only a good thing.
Definitely. So we've taken a good chunk of your time, and we really appreciate that. Before Carl gets into his little questions that he loves to ask, was there anything you wanted to plug, or any shout out, or anything you wanted to talk about?
I mean, this will be out in what?
Speak now, forever. Hold your peace.
I think I got
3 weeks today. This comes out.
I got most of the plugs out there. Obviously, Planet 8 opening, Planet 8, which is also After 8. Opening is going to be really interesting.
I think that sounds fascinating.
The first, I think it's going to be definitely the first of the city. Might even be the first in the UK to be doing essentially dessert tasting menus in the day.
It's during the day as well, isn't it?
So it's a lunchtime, one lunchtime sitting for 8 people, exclusively executed by Andy, Jake and Sam and Curtis. But it's 100% dessert led. So it's essentially a dessert tasting menu. Another one of those, crazy out there ideas that seems to be well received at the moment. And then the same venue then becomes After 8, and that's at 10 o'clock. So when all the guests have finished in 8, which is circa around 10 o'clock, they go to what we call After 8, which is the After 8 after party, for more drinks and a good time. Really, what we're trying to do is kind of stem the stigma of what we would classify as fine dining. It's got to be fun, it's got to be interesting, it's got to be dynamic, it's got to be different, and that's where that's come from. Obviously, can't wait for the outdoor, barbecue to kick off with outdoor dining around the fire. I think that's going to be really cool for anyone that's done it.
I suppose with that you can continually have guest chefs turn up to it as well, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And those Sundays will continue to be used for that, so that's brilliant. Apart from that, we're going to continue doing what we're doing, and do it well. We're going to continue to champion, English or British produce, and yes, people might frown at me for only doing English and Welsh wine. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit. I will continue to do English and Welsh wine, and if people don't like it, they can go and buy French wine from Sainsbury's.
Well, there's absolute cracking ones. There's no excuse at the moment to not get English or Welsh.
Because I'm really not interested in people that tell me that wine's crap, because it's definitely not. There's 526 vineyards. We produce in excess of 100 million bottles of wine, and we will continue to champion it. And I challenge anyone in a blind test to work out that English sparkling wine isn't as good as champagne, because it fools many people.
No, several of my favourite wines at the moment, they're English, and they're fantastic.
Yeah. So we'll continue to do that. So what questions you got for me then?
These are just simple questions. I say simple. We asked them the other day, and someone said they're not simple. They're about you, and they're just little things so people get to know you better.
Yep.
So you'll get a feel for what they are from the first one. What's your favourite movie?
Favourite movie? Remember the Titans by Denzel Washington.
That's a good one.
Obsessed with that movie.
What's your favourite band?
Oh, now that, what, current?
No, whatever.
Do you know what? Favourite band? I mean, I'll narrow that down to favourite band live.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So, without a doubt, Coldplay live are epic. But a bit of a guilty pleasure, I really like Queen and Adam Lambert.
Queen with Adam Lambert?
With Adam Lambert, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So he obviously has taken over from Freddie Mercury's role. And watching them live is really, really, it's exceptional. Really,
I can imagine it's one of them, everyone knows the words to everything. So it's just a big karaoke night.
But Coldplay, I think back to Wembley. They did 5 nights at Wembley. When I was group chief exec at HCO, we had a box at Wembley, 20-seater box. I went to every single night, 5 nights on the trot with clients, and I absolutely, just thought it was epic. So, yeah, Coldplay.
Nice. What's your favourite spirit?
I don't drink.
Oh, right.
Screwed. Yeah, I don't drink. Although I have had a tendency to drink copious amounts of vodka and Red Bull in Marbella. Right. So, yeah, I suppose vodka and Red Bull.
What's your favourite soft drink then?
Soft drink? Coke Zero. No,
Coke Zero's the
drinking
one.
it now. Really bad for yourself. That's my, I don't smoke and I don't really drink, but I drink shitloads of Coke Zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
What's your favourite big fast food chain?
Big fast food chain. Probably Five Guys.
If you're getting takeaway, what is it?
I mean, I've started to scrap takeaways now because, I keep getting Akhtar Islam boxes sent to me. So there's no point in
Are
ordering.
you able to get them? Because they're always sold out when I try and get
Yeah, I
hold
think
of
I've
one.
got this VIP black card thing where I can skip the queue. No, I'll be honest with you, that's better than any takeaway from an Indian by far, by a million miles. But takeaway wise, I'll eat anything from pizza to Chinese. I've got, and I do love kebabs. I bloody well love them.
Yeah, they're good, aren't they?
Yeah. So I ordered a load of kebabs to the restaurant the other day when we were closed, of course. But me and Andy and the lads were in, and we ordered a load of kebabs from Hookways. Have you ever heard?
I've heard of them. I haven't had it
Really
personally,
good, man.
but I've heard they're great.
Really good. So Hookways kebabs good. Yeah.
Other than Birmingham, what's your best food destination in the world?
Do you know what? You're hard pushed to look past London, and I know I would say that being a Londoner, but
Were you the first person that said London?
Yeah, the best city in the world for me is Singapore. I last went to Singapore in 2018 for the Formula One, and I couldn't find a bad meal.
No.
Literally everything from 3-star establishments to street food. It was just epic. So Singapore for me is outside of the UK, but I being from London, I know where to eat and where not to eat.
Yeah.
I've grown up in that city and I've boshed around that city pretty much all my life. So, as a result, there's places in London that no one else would have ever considered going. Then there's places that everyone, knows. I think the best restaurant in the United Kingdom by a mile is Core.
I was just about to say, I know you've been to Corn.
Yeah.
That's top right at the that in the show, they're right at the top of my list.
100%, just knocks the socks off of anyone. And I went there with Andy and Akhtar, and a load of us went there to the chef's table, and the meal that Claire put on for us.
Well, you're with people that really know food as well.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. And literally, we could not find an inch wrong with that restaurant. In fact, we couldn't even find a restaurant that would come anywhere near close to it.
Yeah. And for 3 Michelin stars, it's very reasonably priced as well.
Yeah. I think, and it's really interesting because she's not changed her price even when she went to
No,
3-star.
I had a quick look when I said the day after. I was like, I bet it's gone up.
Yeah,
And it hadn't gone
but
up.
it hadn't, and,
No.
and I admire that. About her. I think she's a force to be reckoned with, quite potentially is one of the best chefs in the world. If
Yeah,
not the-
definitely. That's my question.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Sam.
Anytime.
Yeah,
Thanks for
Sam.
having me, guys.
No problem.
Thank
Been a
you.
pleasure.